Welcome to the New England Football Show presented by Mortgage Right. I'm your host, John Sarianides. And as always, I'm joined by my partners, Adam Kirkchin and Kevin Stone. Gentlemen, how are you this evening?
Doing great. Thanks for having
Doing
us.
good, guys. How are you?
Good, good. Stone's all business tonight. All right. So before we get started here, I do want to remind you that we are brought to you by Mortgage Right. If you are in the market to sell your current home or purchase your first home, then you need to talk to our good friend Herb Devine. With over 27 years of experience, Herb has the knowledge that you need to help you buy your next home. He can help you both as a loan officer and he can put you in the right program with the right lender to help you get the loan you need to purchase your dream home. Give him a call at 781-254-2846 or shoot him an email at herb@mortgageright.com. He and his team are available anytime, including nights and weekends, to help you out. And I can't stress enough, fall's a great time to buy a house. Yeah, I know a lot of people will say once school starts, it's hard with families, but believe it or not, fall's actually a pretty good time to buy. The market is starting to slow down a little bit. You have a little less competition than you do in the spring and the summer. And if you close within 30 days, you can probably get into your dream home right before the holidays. So again, if you're ready to make either your next purchase and move into your new home or purchase your first home, like I said, give Herb a call at 781-254-2846 or shoot him an email at herb@mortgageright.com. All right, gentlemen, I didn't think we were going to talk about this. I didn't think we were going to talk about a Patriots win, but alas, here we are. Patriots with a big 16-10 win yesterday over the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't think too many people picked them. It was interesting. The Patriots themselves put out the predictions. They put out a picture of the predictions of their game against Cincinnati by the NFL Network, NFL.com people. They all picked Cincinnati across the board, and I believe they wrote "Who Day" in the tweet. But look, I'd be lying to you if I wouldn't tell you that I was surprised. I mean, I did not think they were going to win this football game. I thought Cincinnati had a lot of problems, especially with the drama surrounding T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. But this is a franchise in recent years that has been a notoriously slow starting franchise. Patriots go in there with a sound game plan. They ran the football, played good defense, and they got their first win of the 2024 season. And, of course, they also got Gerard Mayo his first win. Thoughts on yesterday's game, Kevin, starting with you.
So I actually thought they were going to win yesterday, and a lot of it had to do with I talked to 4 players on Friday in the locker room. Gerard Mayo had been on Devon Gottschalk's podcast earlier in the week, and first of all, just as a side note, if there's any sign of how different things are, the head coach going on a player's podcast is certainly one of them. But all 4 guys, I asked them, why are they willing to run through a wall for Gerard Mayo? And they all talked about the relationship that he's built with the team already. And now, obviously, he's had the advantage, that a lot of head coaches or new head coaches don't have, and the fact that he's been there for a while and could, kind of establish those relationships. But I just had an inkling that, they felt extremely disrespected, and they talked about it yesterday, post-game. We all saw the videos of them coming off the field and stuff. So what was surprising to me is how it looked. Defense was dominant, and look, we all thought the defense was going to be good, but maybe not to that extent. And then maybe the second biggest surprise for me was Jacoby's ability to extend plays or go get first downs when you really needed them. So I wasn't necessarily surprised that they won. I was surprised at how it looked. And John, you mentioned Cincy. They always kind of struggle this time of year. So again, it wasn't necessarily that they won. It was how they won for me. And look, Gerard Mayo said it today. It's only one game, but I don't think anybody, well, really, the majority of the fan base thought there'd be anything positive coming out of yesterday's game. So there was a lot to like. And look, Cincinnati certainly blew some chances. That fumble going in, that might change the game. But then also, when they made it 13-7, you have a response drive right away, and you kick a field goal to make it a 2-possession game. So just a lot to like about it. Are they perfect? No. Are they a playoff team? Probably not. I have them at 8-9. But at the very least, I think we might get meaningful football in December, and that's all you can ask for at this point in a rebuild.
Yeah, again, I definitely did not expect anything like that, but I mean, it kind of just goes to show how you can look if you just don't make the big mistake. You know, they forced Cincinnati to make some big mistakes, and they avoided it. Like they didn't play perfect, but they played a relatively clean game, and they made it hurt when Cincinnati screwed up. And I feel like they wanted to play this way last year, and they just couldn't really, execute as well as they did. Credit Gerard Mayo for coaching this team. This was a disciplined group. This was not, just flying out there and running around with your heads cut off. They were disciplined. They played smart. Again, like you said, Kev, their defense was awesome. The defense wasn't good. It was awesome.
Special teams too.
Yo, special teams, like they just outplayed Cincinnati. I thought he outcoached the other guy. So I mean, if they're gonna take disrespect and turn it into that, then go ahead and keep disrespecting this team because that's what they've got. I loved how they ran the ball. That's something that they said they were gonna do, and they did it. They ran the ball extremely well. Ramondre Stevenson was excellent. And they closed the game out. How many, times have you seen them, just not be able to do that? They played great. Now, are they going to be able to do that 17 weeks? I doubt it. But it just shows you what they're capable of. If they have a deficit in talent to some of these other teams, they don't have Jamar Chase. Jacoby Brissett is not Joe Burrow. But if they can just not make mistakes, they can beat a lot of teams. And that's what I feel like they sort of, not that they're like this, but, that's what they sort of did in like 2001. They said, we're going to play a clean game. We're going to beat you. You're going to make a mistake, and we're going to capitalize off it. So I thought it was a very Patriots win. And in some ways, it was very new. But in some ways, it was just like they've been doing a lot of years under Belichick. So it was kind of cool to see.
I really liked the clean game analogy there. I wish it was that easy.
Yeah.
I wish I could sit around and say, fellas, we're going to play a clean game and we're going to win until they make a mistake and we're going to win. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. But that being said, yeah, this is a huge win for them. And for me, look, you're not going to win many games playing like this, unfortunately, with their schedule. I'd love to sit here and tell you that I think that if they run the football and play this kind of defense, that they're gonna win 9-10 games and be a playoff team. I don't believe that. I still think that this is a 6-11, 7-10 football team, maybe even 5-12. Look, Kevin brought up a great point. I don't think you're taking anything away from the Patriots when you say this. They played very well. When you think about where we thought they were and what we thought they were going to be, I thought they played pretty well. Okay, but Hudson fumbles that ball, Cardinal sin. He's running around with it like this as if it's the newspaper and he's about to toss it at someone's front door. Well, guys who play defense are taught if a guy's going to hold the ball away from his body, depending on how he's holding it, either tomahawk it or punch through. Well, I mean, that's what the Patriots did. He fumbles, they recover it, drive over. I mean, if Cincinnati scores there, perhaps this is a different game. And again, I'm not taking anything away from the Patriots. Jacoby Brissett did what you brought him in here to do. Manage the offense. Don't turn the ball over. Don't screw it up. Ramondre Stevenson, I thought he was the highlight of the day for me. He was the biggest positive in this win. He legitimately looks like a bell cow back, a guy that you can give him the ball 25, 30 times a game, and he's going to produce. He had 25 carries yesterday. He had 120 yards and a touchdown. They rushed for 170 yards. The defense, Kevin, you mentioned this, and I agree. We knew they were going to be pretty good going into the season. They've been pretty good the last few years. Even last year, they're a 4-13 football team, but this defense was a top 15 defense in the league. So we knew that they would keep them in games. They played really well. I thought they played with a chip on their shoulder. But I think what it comes down to is they executed their game plan. So that's where I give them credit. But I also think Cincinnati pulled a Cincinnati. They haven't been very good under Zach Taylor the first 4 weeks of the season in his tenure there, and they continued to struggle. I thought that their offensive line was putrid. I thought Joe Burrow was late on some throws. He looked like he had been out almost a year. They clearly miss T. Higgins. They don't really have a threat at tight end. And hey, by the way, Joe Mixon, he went for $159 yesterday for the Texans. You don't think they missed that guy? I'm pretty sure they did. No offense to Zach Moss and Chase Brown, but they're not Joe Mixon, and they're not going to produce at his level. So while, yes, this is a nice win, I caution people to relax with this is going to be a springboard to them surprising people, blah, blah, blah. It's week 1, and you played a team that is in some turmoil, that is getting their quarterback back, that has had some key changes, especially on offense, and it's going to take them a while to get going. Unfortunately for them, they go to Kansas City this week. But I do think, nonetheless, if you take all of that out of the equation, this is still a big win for this franchise, because I think we all universally agree we're considering this a rebuilding year. The fact that they can go on the road and run the football, play good defense, and win, which is a tried and true formula, the fact that they can do that is pretty significant. Now, can you win this way every week? No, I don't think you can. I think ultimately they're going to get into – they can play this way and stay in games. I'm just not sure that they can win a lot of games playing this way. Obviously, it'll depend on the opponent, but it's a big win nonetheless. Now, the question is, can they carry this momentum into Sunday's home opener against the Seattle Seahawks? Of course, Seattle beat Denver yesterday. Look, I think Seattle presents some different challenges. I think they're a more talented skill group. They don't have a Jamar Chase, but I think they have more skill. And I think defensively, they're going to present some challenges as well. Can the Patriots move on to 2-0? Can they win this game, Adam?
Yeah, I think they can. I mean, I would have thought a couple weeks ago that that this was a definite loss, or at least a game where they'd be underdogs in. I think, again, like they have to. I think this actually the way they play kind of helps their offensive line, because when you tell your offensive line to go downhill and block people in the run game, I think it gets them fired up. And I think Stevenson has another good game, and I think they can win. I didn't see too much of Seattle's game earlier, but I do think that the Patriots can sort of carry this momentum into it, because now they've got some confidence. I think a few more people are going to be believing in them. But I think that you keep it going with Brissett, man. I think that. He played well. Like, he didn't play lights out, but he played pretty much mistake-free ball, and I think they can keep it going. I think they can beat Seattle.
Kevin, before you go, I just wanted to throw this out to you guys. He was 15-24 for 121 yards. He didn't throw a touchdown pass. He had a passer rating of 82.4. He was sacked once. Is that good enough to win with?
Well, that sack.
That game it was.
That sack, I thought we might see Drake May. He was.
He got hit. He got kicked around.
Yes, I do think they could win this game. When the schedule came out, we did our way too early prediction. This is one of the games I had them winning. After watching that Seattle game yesterday, their offensive line struggled badly in the first half against Denver. Picked it up in the second half and ultimately pulled away. I think offensively they're going to have some problems with Kenneth Walker and DK Metcalf, but you also thought they'd have problems with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. So in my head, I think this defense actually ends up not shutting them down completely, but I think it's going to be tough for Seattle to score on this team. And, is Geno Smith a better version of Jacoby Brissett? Probably. I think they're sort of in that same bucket. You guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it's another low-scoring game, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's pretty much the exact same score as we saw yesterday. But if you're going to get contributions like you got from all three phases, especially special teams, Joe Cardona forcing a fumble, if you start getting those types of plays, well, you're going to be in every game. So, I do think they win this game, and I think being at home sort of helps a little bit too. I know that whole West Coast to East Coast thing is a thing. It feels like it's been maybe less of an issue in recent years past. I don't have the numbers to back me up, but overall, I think they win this game.
Ken checks in. What is your opinion on Gonzo? I thought Gonzalez played well yesterday. He didn't have the best camp. He struggled over the summer, but I thought he played pretty well yesterday. I thought he did a really nice job on Jamar Chase and Ken adds that he only allowed Chase to catch 6 balls for 66 yards. Yeah, I mean, it is important to note here that Chase didn't go through training camp, didn't play in any of the preseason games, so he was getting back into game shape. But Gonzalez showed that he has the traits that you want in a number one corner. He showed that he could be a shutdown corner in this league. And you develop that reputation when you play well against guys like Jamar Chase. I thought he did it. Ken, thanks for checking in. Yeah, I mean, I think, look, at the beginning of the year, I had them, or I should say in the spring, I had picked them to win this game. I think they can win this game. Now, what happens after this week, I think remains to be seen. They go to the Jets, they go to San Francisco. Those are going to be 2 very tough road games. But they can win this week. I don't think Seattle is some world beater. I think that Geno Smith is mid at quarterback. I think Kenneth Walker, he can break long runs. I think the key to this game is going to be the Patriots front 7 versus that Seattle offensive line. If they can get consistent pressure on Smith, get him off his spot like they did Burrow, and not allow him to sit, work his progression, and find DK Metcalf or Jackson Smith and Jigba or Tyler Lockett, I think that they can win this football game. It's going to be all about the defense and what they do to Smith. I think offensively, if they want to win this game, they're going to have to play better. They're going to have to do more in the passing game. And let's not lose sight of that. I mean, your leading receiver was Austin Hooper yesterday. I mean, this receiving core did not do anything to dispel the notion that there really isn't a lot of talent there. So they're going to have to play a lot better if they want to win Sunday.
No, just to your point real quick, Hunter Henry saved an interception in the end zone. You know, that day could have been a lot uglier for Brissett than it really was.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I mean, I think again, when you look at the receiving numbers, I mean, it's not, you're not going to win when, I mean, Austin Hooper, I'm just pulling them up here. Austin Hooper, 2 catches, 31 yards. He was your leading receiver. Tyquan Thornton, 2 for 27. KJ Osborne, 3 for 21. Hunter Henry, 2 for 18. Pop Douglas, who, you know, we've been all fawning over all summer, 2 for 12. I mean, that's just not good. And I think, Adam, you said this at the start of the show. They don't have that kind of guy. They just don't have that alpha wide receiver or tight end. And while, yes, you can win by distributing the ball to a bunch of people, no disrespect to Austin Hooper because he's had a nice career, but he can't be your leading receiver and you expect to win week in and week out. He can't. 2 for 31, that's not going to work. He was your leading receiver or whatever it was. Actually, I think he was 2 for 31. He was your leading receiver. That's not going to work. So they got to be a lot better. I think they can win Sunday, but they got to get more out of Brissett in this passing game. You are watching / listening to the New England Football Show presented by Mortgage Right. I'm your host, John Serenitas. As always, I'm joined by Kirkchin and Stone. Just a reminder that if you are in the market to sell your current home and purchase your next home or purchase your first home, give our good friend Herb Devine a call at 781-254-2846, or you can email him at herb@mortgageright.com. With 27 years of experience as a loan officer and in the lending industry, Herb can point you in the right direction to purchase your next home. He can help you get in the right program and the right loan that works for you financially. Again, give him a call at 781-254-2846 or shoot him an email at herb@mortgageright.com. He and his team are available anytime, including nights and weekends. All right, gentlemen, let's shift gears here, talk some college football. Boston College, big blowout win on Saturday over Duquesne. I don't want to really spend any time on that. Eagles improved to 2-0. They're now the 24th ranked team in the country. They got a big one on Saturday, big early season test when they head out to Missouri to take on the Missouri Tigers, who have kind of sort of become a rival based on what happened here a few years ago when they beat him here 3 years ago. But I think we're going to get to find out what this team is more about. Again, impressive win over Florida State. They beat Duquesne, who they should have beat. I mean, they're an FCS school. Now they get a real test here in Missouri. We're going to find out if this 24th ranked Boston College football team is legitimate, if they're good enough to be a player nationally. I think this game is going to be a pretty good litmus test against a Missouri team that's going to be in the mix in the SEC West.
Yeah, so 2 things stand out from Saturday before we talk about Missouri. Yes, you should have beat Duquesne, obviously, but in the last, let's call it 3 or 4 years, that's a game they might struggle with and kind of no-show for a first half. If you are a top 25 team, that's how that win should have looked. That's a statement win for that team. Look, Tommy Castellanos didn't play the entire second half. Offensive line didn't play the entire second half. Again, those are the kind of games, if you believe you are a contender, you blow a team out that way at home, and they did. So that was good to see. And then the other thing for me was the passing game. They aired it out. They went deep. Tommy spread it out a little bit. So that was nice to see, especially after Florida State, when they didn't really have to do any throwing of the football. They just ran it down their throat. So it's hard to take much away from a 56-point win, but those are two big takeaways. As far as Missouri, look, John, you said it. This is a national, well, not national TV, but a statement game again. It's, are you for real? Is all the talk worth it? Is, are you worthy of the ranking and sort of the newfound publicity that you're getting across the country? So huge statement opportunity. A weird kickoff time. It's going to be 11:45 in the morning there. I'm curious to see what you guys think about that, if it affects anything. But yeah, it's a massive opportunity for this team, especially with Michigan State in prime time and red bandana game when you come home next weekend. This is also really, if you look at their schedule, aside from maybe Louisville, this might be the hardest game they have left on the schedule. And you can really, if you find a way to win this game, and again, I don't want to get too far ahead. It's still only September, but if you win this game, you can start talking ACC championship, I think. I honestly believe that, just because of the schedule, which we talked about early in the season too.
Yeah, it's I think it's kind of big for BC's moment on sort of the local stage. If they can win this game, because people are saying, well, they're not really a top 25 team. They've only beaten Florida State and they were overrated, and they lost to Georgia Tech, who's overrated. So, I mean, I can see why people are still skeptical. But if they beat an SEC team on the road, a good SEC team on the road, then do they start to gain a little bit more of attention locally? Because there's a lot of pushback against BC anytime they do well. But, I always say, like in 2007, when they made it to the ACC title game, the Red Sox were in the World Series, and the Patriots were having an undefeated season. Well, now the Red Sox are not going to the postseason, I don't think. And the Patriots, they're decent, but they're not what they were that year. So, like, if BC can sort of assert themselves here and put them into the conversation, I think it'd be great for BC football, and it'd be great for O'Brien's first year as the coach here. So I think this is a big game for them in a lot of different ways. But I really like, if they can capture the attention of the pro sports market that exists here, then I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that this is a prime opportunity for them to do that. As you mentioned, Red Sox probably don't make the playoffs. Patriots probably don't make the playoffs. They're the Patriots, so they'll obviously continue to get fan and media attention. But Boston College has a real opportunity here to really get more attention and start to gain more of a share of the Boston sports interest. Of course, the Celtics are going to be starting up soon. Bruins are starting up probably they are starting up in the next week. So those two teams will garner attention as well. But I really do think, to your point, Adam, this is a golden opportunity for Boston College football to get more attention, some much needed attention. Now, and you probably remember this, we're around the same age. When I was a kid, BC football was a big deal. When Tom Coughlin was here, Glenn Foley, Pete Mitchell, Tom McManus, those teams, Boston College football was probably bigger than the Patriots in the late 80s, early 90s. That's not hyperbole. That's fact. So, I think that, can it get back to that level? Probably not. But I do think you're starting to see more people be interested in the program. And if they find a way to win this week, they'll be a top 20 team minimum, maybe even top 15. I don't know if they make that big of a jump, but they'll certainly be in the top 20. That will get people's attention. And then if somehow you beat Michigan State, win the red bandana game, now you're probably a top 15 team in the country. Well, now that Boston College football will be firmly back on the map here, and I think you'll see more people interested in it. And Kevin, I think you bring up a great point about their schedule. Once you get through these two games, it's a pretty manageable schedule. You've got a bunch of home games. You've got a bunch of games you can win. There's a lot of uncertainty in the ACC. Syracuse looks like they're going to be pretty good. You mentioned Louisville. End of the year, you got North Carolina coming to town. So there are some tough games there, Virginia Tech. But these are all games they can win if they get through this 2-game stretch here. Look, I don't want to sound defeatist when I say this, but even if they lose Saturday and then you turn around and you beat Michigan State in the red bandana game, I think if you told Bill O'Brien at the beginning of the season that, hey, after 4 weeks, you guys will be 3-1, I think he would take it, right? Wouldn't he take it?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, especially the way it's looked. Absolutely. And just to both of your points about, sort of bringing BC back, they had 38,000 people in the stadium the other day for Duquesne. Like, that's not easy to do. In the last few years, that's a 30,000, capacity sort of, not capacity, a game where 30,000 show up is what I'm trying to say. So the buzz is there. They had 6,000 students. So again, they're slowly working their way back. This would just be a huge step forward.
And one other thing to sort of jump off of that is that BC, recruiting wise, was always going to go up against a wall if they were only going 7-6, 5-7. If they were having those types of seasons, they're always going to have that wall they're going to have, even with local recruits. Well, if BC's winning and they're ahead of the game in that respect, and they're saying, oh, Max Tucker, oh, that's Ozzie Trapillo, oh, there's Drew Kendall, that is going to have a major effect on recruiting if they're winning. And they are, and if they can keep winning, especially the way that they've been winning, just physically dominating at the point of attack, I think it's going to really pay dividends down the line. Now, I'm not saying that BC is going to get every local kid. That's impossible, or it should be impossible, but it will help with getting those local recruits if you start winning and you beat Florida State and you beat all these other teams, you beat Missouri, beat Michigan State. That's going to really get the buzz going in the recruiting world for them as well.
Yeah, and Adam, just to that point, they had 35. They had 35 local recruits on hand on Saturday. The majority of them were 26, 27, and 28 kids. So these are younger kids seeing this BC program kind of progress and maybe become something big. So yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah. I mean, I still have my doubts. I've always been glasses half full with Boston College. I mean, I'll believe it when I see it. You know what I mean? And this is not a knock. I think the world of Bill O'Brien. I think he's fantastic. I thought he was a home run hire. I really like that staff. I think that if Boston College is going to get back on track, I think this is the right staff to get him there. But I think we need to be cautious here. Saturday, to me, will be a true barometer of where this program is. If they get blown out, then you look at it and you say, okay, you know what? They beat a Florida State team that's clearly down. They beat an NEC team in Duquesne. Maybe more of an indication of who they are is how they play today. But again, like I said, if they go out there and win, all of a sudden now they're probably going to be in the top 20. And then if they find a way to beat Michigan State the following Saturday night, the conversation changes. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I think this is an important slate for them. At minimum, they need to come out of it 3-1. All right, we're going to talk a little UConn here. UConn beating Merrimack 63-17. Offense finally gets going for the Huskies. Joe Fagnano starts to throw 5 touchdown passes in the win. Kind of a surprising score here, only because Merrimack only lost to Air Force the week before, 21-6. They played really well defensively. I'll be honest with you, fellas, I didn't see this score.
No, neither did I. Thought Merrimack would compete a little bit better, but again, it's an FCS FBS matchup. Maybe that should be what we expect. But it's good to get UConn's offense rolling again and see how they do going forward.
I think if anything, it speaks highly of Jim Mora and the fact that he can get his guys to kind of, come out and play that way early on. I think it was 49-0 at the half or something like that. So, look, we've done our fair share of bashing of UConn over the last couple of weeks, especially after the rough start. But that's an impressive showing at home. Again,
I wouldn't say we bashed them. I mean, I think we've told it like it is. I don't think we're bashing anybody.
But that's a better way to put it. But no, to come out and put that performance on against a somewhat hungry Merrimack team. I think it just shows that Morris still has the room, if anything else, or if nothing else.
Of course, UMass goes out to Toledo and loses 38-23. This was an interesting game because the Minutemen were in it for most of it. Unfortunately, they fell apart, couldn't get some stops in the second half of the game. Tyson Fomachon, the quarterback, finished 26 of 40 for 259 yards. He did throw a touchdown pass, but he also threw a pick. He also had 22 carries for 44 yards. And look, I think that the defense was actually playing fairly well early in this game. They kind of fell apart in the second half. The offense was doing its thing, but they couldn't ultimately keep up. I mean, again, if you're a UMass fan, you look at this and it's frustrating because this was a game at the beginning of the year that we all said, hey, this is going to be a tough game for them to win. Going out to the Glass Bowl, Toledo's pretty good. Jason Candle, good coach. They hung in there. They played tough. But again, this is a program where we're at a place now where there's no more room for moral victories here, fellas. So you played tough. You got to do better than play tough. This is a disappointing outcome for UMass, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you said it in terms of like no moral victories because there's been a ton of those over the years. I think UMass fans are sick of moral victories because there's only so many you can have before you just say, all right, well, when are we going to get a win? Well, I do like what Fomachon was able to do for the most part. I think he's a good passer. I think he can run a little bit too. Um, I don't know what's up for UMass. I don't know what the next step is. Just try to get some wins. It's it sometimes seems to me like they'll get up on a team or they'll play well and then the first wrong thing happens and they're like, oh, here we go again. Like well, this is UMass. We're going to lose. Blah blah blah. So I'm just hoping they can turn that part around because it's tough to get out of when you're in there.
Yeah, it was big plays that cost him in this one. I'm just kind of going back over the game book. You make it 10-10 at one point. 10 seconds later, Toledo has a 98-yard kick return. Later in the game, I think fourth quarter, you cut it to 31-23. They scored 30 seconds later on a touchdown pass. So it's more of the same. They keep shooting themselves in the foot just when it looks like they're about to kind of, maybe get over that hump and get a big win. And the defense gave up 38. I know yardage totals and stuff like that they were in UMass's favor, but again, you can't get stops when you need to. I don't know what to make about the UMass program anymore. If Don Brown can't get guys to get a stop after you just got yourself in the game several times, we've talked about this for years now. Who else are you going to bring in that can? So they're in a weird spot right now, and I wrote this the other day. It's another uphill battle for them to get into a bowl game now. You got to go 6-4 the rest of the way at least. So, man, just it's frustrating to watch and cover them because again, it seems like they're right there and then just sort of knock themselves down.
Yeah, and they go to Buffalo this week. UConn, who we talked about earlier, they go to Duke this week, and then they come home for some ridiculous number, like 6 straight home games. I mean, it's crazy. Going around the CAA, UNH picks up a big 21-20 win over Holy Cross. And look, this was a great game. Our Ryan Barry was there. It was back and forth, kind of slowed down in the second half, but UNH comes from behind late, wins at 21-20. And look, both of these teams graduated a lot of talent. They lost a lot of talent. So it was to be expected that they would both get off to a slow start offensively. Neither team played great on offense in this game. I think they played well enough to win. If you're a Holy Cross fan, you're so used to success in recent years. It's got to be pretty disappointing to be 0-2 to start the season. I'm sure Dan Curran is pretty disappointed. But this was a hell of a game. Ryan kept saying that he thought it was the best game of the weekend. It certainly lived up to that moniker. It truly was the best game of the weekend. UNH prevails to go to 1-1 on the season.
Yeah, I think it was a great win for UNH. I think it's Isaac Seed from I think he was at Melrose and then Everett. And he had a great game. That's the sort of the guy I was expecting when he went to UNH to be that type of back. He's fast, he's shifty, he breaks tackles. He had I think 61 yards, right? Just a great game for him. It's awesome to see him break out in that way. And I think, I feel like UNH may have found something with him in that game, and it was just a great win for them. Tough loss for Holy Cross.
Yeah, as far as UNH, that's a huge win. They haven't won in Worcester since 2012. And they obviously had the tough playoff loss a couple years ago. So to win in that fashion was huge. For Holy Cross, John, you mentioned it, two heartbreaking losses. You lose on a touchdown with 19 seconds left, and then you lose by 1 point in your home opener. So they have to go to Bryant this week. I I think they should handle Bryant. Bryant seems like they're really sort of struggling with a young team. They barely got past Franklin Pierce this weekend, but um, they need to win that game because if not, and you go 0-3, I don't care who the coach is, you start to hear it a little bit at least. I know that's a very polite and kind of nice fan base, but a win just to sort of get them going again would be huge.
Yeah, because they've got a bunch of other tough games coming up. I mean,
Right.
you got Yale coming up, so they've got some tough games. And I agree. I think this is, in many ways, an early season must-win game for Holy Cross. You mentioned Bryant. They beat Franklin Pierce 21-17. That was a pretty tight game there for a while. Quarterback Jared Guest had a big game. He threw 3 touchdown passes to wide receiver Landon Ruggieri, but that game was much closer for comfort than Chris Merritt and his staff would have wanted. Kudos to Franklin Pierce, as Kevin mentioned. Holy Cross visits Bryant on Saturday. We'll be there for that one. It's a 2 p.m. kickoff. Sacred Heart, talking about playing Division II team, they only beat St. A's 10-3. They had their hands full with St. A's as well. Xavier Lee scoring the lone touchdown in that game. Pioneers defense played pretty good, but they need to start playing better on offense. They just don't have the ability to make big plays, and it's really showed up the first 2 weeks of the season. They go to Georgetown this week. And how about Central Connecticut State? They had an impressive 33-3 win over Fordham, who's been pretty good in recent years out of the Patriot League. Brady Olson, formerly of Milford High School, threw 2 touchdown passes in the win. And look, Central Connecticut State did a really good job this offseason in the portal. They fortified the roster. We know what they have at running back. We know what they have on defense at linebacker. But Coach Lechtenberg and his staff really did a good job. I think landing Olson was huge for them. You got a guy that's a proven starter who could step in and play well in the NEC. And so far, he's proven that he can do that. The running game was by no means dominant, but it was still pretty good. And this is a nice win for Central Connecticut State. They needed this one. Stony Brook beat Stonehill 37-10. Tough start for Stonehill, despite quarterback Asher Karaha throwing a touchdown pass and throwing for over 200 yards. He also rushed for 70 yards in the loss. And then, of course, you had the other games in the area that haven't, well, I should say the other games in the area. You still have the Ivy Leagues that haven't kicked off, so we're waiting on them. They're going to be kicking off not this weekend, but the following weekend. So there's plenty of good college football action. Of course, you can join me and Ryan Barry on Wednesday night on the College Football Preview Show. We'll break it all down for you. Let's pivot here and talk some high school football. The last few minutes that we have here. Week 1 in Massachusetts, MIA football kicked off this past weekend. There were some really good games. You had a couple really good games down in Rhode Island as well as some games up in New Hampshire. Connecticut kicks off this weekend. But, Adam, I'm going to start with you. Just some thoughts on week 1. What are your thoughts on some of the action in Massachusetts?
Well, I thought the 2 big out-of-state games for 2 of the top 5 teams in the state, Catholic Memorial against Cardinal Hayes and Iona Prep against Springfield Central, I thought those were big games. Central struggled a little bit with Iona Prep for the second year in a row. They had the better of the play there. I thought Catholic Memorial really had a chance to win that game against Cardinal Hayes. They're up 14-0, and then there was some mistakes in the kicking game, and before you know it, Hayes gets right back into it, and their offense got rolling in that second half. As much as you want Catholic Memorial to win that game for Massachusetts and everything like that, I think a game like that benefits Catholic Memorial a lot more than a game that's in running clock in the third or fourth quarter against an overwhelmed opponent. I still think that, I think that if that game was played 10 times with Cardinal Hayes, it's maybe 5-5. But look, I still think CM is a top 5 team, and they're going to be tough to beat. The game that I went to on Friday night that I thought was interesting was King Philip beating Walpole. I think it was 42-14. And those 14 points came with the backup defense and then for King Philip. Just want to, and but look, King Philip looked great. I mean, I'm not kissing up to you, John, by saying that. I'm just saying, you
Yeah,
know,
you're not.
no, but no, King Philip looked great. I mean, I thought they would be. I thought this year's Walpole game would be closer than it was a year ago. I thought Walpole would really stick with them, but look, when you come out and run the ball the way that King Philip does, when you come out and play the type of defense that King Philip plays, if you run the ball and play defense like that, you're going to be in a great spot. And not to say they don't throw. Obviously, they throw. They didn't have to throw very much. Um, but I was just really impressed. And then another game that caught our attention was St. John's Prep uh, uh, beating Marshfield, and I think they won that one pretty handily. I think everybody was waiting to see what this freshman quarterback Chris Vargas was going to be like for the Prep, and it's from what everybody's told me he did really well that game. And then I think maybe the game of the weekend was Situate beating Foxborough on the last play of the game, on basically a Hail Mary to win 20-14 with no time left when they scored the touchdown. I thought that was crazy. I mean, I talked to Herb Devine after the game. He said we don't even practice Hail Mary situations, but when you got a guy like Lawson Foley, who's I think 6'4", 6'3", it's gonna work out. So I thought I was really impressed with Situate. Foxborough will be back. I don't think this means that they're not a D5 state title contender or anything like that. They're going to be very good, but it was just a really nice win for Situate.
So before I get to my game, the one game I want to ask you guys about, I was shocked by the score, was the Mansfield Everett game. I didn't see that being a blowout. Did either of you?
No, absolutely not. I, maybe we're underestimating Mansfield a little bit because, they this is not like a D1 studded roster at Mansfield this year, but they do have a good quarterback in Tom Villette, and they've got some good hard football play. Like Mansfield's always going to play hard, but I was a little bit shocked that was the spread in that game.
Yeah, I was surprised by it too. Mansfield is relatively young, especially on offense. They've got some experience up front, but they're a pretty young football team. And for them to be able to go up there and win 45-14, it's pretty impressive. And I also think it speaks to the power of coaching and how good the Hawk is. I didn't see that at all. I was pretty surprised by that score. But again, it speaks to the fact that when you look at the high school football landscape in Massachusetts, there is a lot of parity. I mean, even in D1, Springfield Central loses to Iona Prep, who's a very good program out of New York, but you got to figure they're still going to be amongst the favorites in D1. You saw Needham on Friday night, Kevin, who had an impressive win over Milton. They're going to be among the favorites. So there's a lot of parity, I feel, in D1, D2, D3. These divisions are kind of wide open, whereas in 4, it's probably looking like Duxbury, Situate are the leaders of the pack in that division. D5, I still think Foxborough is a clear favorite. But the lower divisions, D6, you have Fairhaven. In the lower divisions, you have more defined contenders. I think in the top 3 divisions, it's wide open, and I think we saw a lot of that this weekend with some of the parity in the games that we covered.
Yeah, just on Needham and Milton. Needham was sort of the Cinderella story last year, right? Like, felt like they kind of came out of nowhere. They might be better than last year. One of the more physically dominant games I've maybe ever seen in person. They held Milton to 11 yards of offense in the first half. Milton didn't hit the 100-yard mark until the second to last play of the game. Aiden Williams on offense had 3 touchdowns in the first half. You can't tackle him when he gets going. He's a huge kid. And then Army commit Will McDonald had a monster game, 2 sacks, strip sack, fumble recovery on that strip sack, and a block punt. He had pressure on Milton all night. So that Needham team is going to be extremely dangerous again this year. If nothing else, they're going to make you feel it for the entire game.
Yeah, I like Needham this year. We got him at, I think, number 6 in the state. And again, you're right. Like last year, people weren't expecting them to come out like the way they did, and they really played well. And like, look, I feel like there's no moral victories, right? But with Needham last year losing to Zavarian by only 3 points and proving they could stay on the field with them, I think it's going to help them a lot this year when they get back to the Division One playoffs. Because the thing that sticks out to me about Needham right now is they're good at the skill positions. They're very good at the skill positions, but they're also really good up front on both sides of the ball. Their
They're
offensive
huge.
line, they're huge. Their offensive line and their defensive line are both very good. And if you want to beat a team like a St. John's Prep, like a Zavarian, like a BCI, those Catholic schools, you can't just be good at the skill positions and sort of so up front, because those teams will expose you if that's the case. So I think that Needham has as good a shot as anybody else in Division One, and they're just they're rolling right now. That's another game I thought was going to be much closer. I thought Needham would probably win, but I didn't think they'd beat Milton 24-0.
Yeah, and of course, BC High went down and played LaSalle down in Providence. We had covered that game for you. Paul Zukowskis picks up his first win as a head coach at his alma mater. North Kingstown had a nice win over Westerly. We covered that game as well. I thought the surprising score of the weekend for me was on Saturday with Pinkerton beating Andover 40-17. I thought that was a pretty impressive win. I mean, Brian Riley does a great job. He's one of the best coaches in New England, but kudos to Pinkerton. I mean, they have always been willing to play programs in Massachusetts. That was a big win for them. And I know Andover they have Papa back at quarterback, and Coach Perry's back, and they did lose Berger and a couple of other guys. But look, no disrespect to them, but Pinkerton, that was an impressive win. I thought that in many ways, in my eyes, that might have been the most impressive win of the weekend, because again, even though your power programs in New Hampshire, Pinkerton, Bedford, Bishop, Girton, Londonderry, even though they have proven in recent years that they can play with Massachusetts teams and beat them, there's still this expectation in Massachusetts that Massachusetts plays the better high school football. They have the better programs because they have better numbers and more programs. But you got to give Pinkerton credit. That was a big win for them.
100%. And anybody that runs an wing tee like they do is always going to have a shot. So yeah, that's a big win for them.
Yeah, and it's great to see. I mean, we've got more interstate matchups this weekend. You've got Bedford and Thornton Academy, which I think is going to be a hell of a football game. I mean, you've got the two-time defending Division I champion in New Hampshire going up against a Division I or a Class A defending champion in Maine. You got Central out of Providence is traveling to Milton this weekend. So you've got some really good interstate matchups this season, and I love it. It's I've been an advocate of this for a long time, where the beauty of New England is you live in a region where the states are close enough that you can play these games. It's nice to see. I love that Cardinal Hayes played CM out of New York. I love that Iona Prep played Springfield Central. I love that both Bishop Hendricken and LaSalle are playing New York teams. Bishop Hendricken opened their season with 2 New York teams. So, I mean, I think it's fantastic. And again, I think this is what continues to help put New England and Massachusetts high school football on the map. And, of course, Connecticut kicks off this weekend. And there's some great games there in the Alliance schedule that we're looking forward to. And not this weekend, but the following weekend, you've got Greenwich and Bishop Hendricken. That's going to be a fantastic matchup. So there's a lot of great games and we're looking forward to trying to get to as many of them as we can. It just dawned on me when we talked college ball, I didn't mention URI and Maine out of the CAA. URI had a tough 48-0 loss in Minnesota. They hung in there. I thought the defense played pretty well in the first half. Minnesota kind of pulled away in the second half. Former UNH quarterback Max Brosmer had a big game there for the Golden Gophers. And I thought Maine, going out to Montana State, one of the best FCS programs in the country, and scoring 24 points on them and losing 41-24, but playing competitively, I think that's big for Jordan Stevens' squad. I think this team is better, and I think it's going to reflect in their record at the end of the season. I think Maine is going to end up winning more games than people think this year. I think this program has really come along here in year 3 of Coach Stevens' tenure. All right, gentlemen, we got about a minute left here. Just some final thoughts. Kirkshin, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think there'll be some interesting games this week. One of the The games I'm sort of looking forward to is Foxborough versus Walpole. I know we saw one of those teams this weekend, but both teams have started 0-1. I bet they're both desperate to get that first victory. But plenty of good games to see around here.
Yeah, as usual, stick with us and subscribe to the site. Grab a hat, grab a T-shirt. We appreciate the support, and we'll be all over New England again this weekend.
Yeah, and again, I say it all the time. We push the subscriptions, we push the apparel because for us, it's really about content creation. And the more resources we have, the more content we can create, and we can get to more states and we can get to more games. So all your support is appreciated. Again, make sure you subscribe at anyfootballjournal.com for $2.99 a month. You get some of the best football coverage in New England. If you can't subscribe, go over to our team shop, pick up a hat, pick up a polo. That helps as well. Any bid helps, but it allows us to position ourselves to put a better product out there and to give you more coverage. And we take a lot of pride in that. Look, I say it all the time. We know there are other options out there, but we feel that when it comes to football, we're year round, and you know what you're going to get with us. We're all football all the time. So all the support we can get, we greatly appreciate. All right, gentlemen, great job. It was a little spotty at times, and I blame the host. It's my fault. Not on my A game tonight, so I got to be better. The coach in me sees that, and we will be better next week. But that'll do it for this week's episode. Join us again next Monday night, and don't forget, Wednesday night, high school preview show, college preview show, and, of course, don't forget the Patriots Pulse postgame show after the Patriots-Seahawks game on Sunday. We'll be back with you next Monday. Until then, for Kevin Stone and Adam Kirkchin, I'm John Serenitas. Peace.